Hi guys, welcome. So today we'll continue off from what we did last episode. In the last episode we talked about what is Qi, and for those that are interested you can watch episode 2. So the next question usually we get from sitting meditation is, okay, so we have a rough definition of Qi, but why do we make that a goal to relieve suffering? What's so important about tapping into or feeling this energy? Why does it even heal? Is it true? Well, I'm going to give you a basic introduction of that, right? It's based on the idea of red dust. Rather, we're talking about Buddhism or Hinduism, they don't call it red dust, but in Buddhism and Han Dynasty Taoism, we call it the red dust. And red dust is really just a fancy way to say the whirl of matter, like forms. Because in the last episode, we were talking about energy versus form, or emptiness versus form, right? Well, in the form world or matter, basically you have outside form and you have inside form, and then you have no form or emptiness or Brahman or Tao, or in physics they call it dark energy. Whatever you want to call it, what's behind form, energy, and versus form, outside form and your own form. Okay, if you look at outside form, it's really what the rat race is about, right? We're constantly trying to get outside things to make us happy, whether it's making more money or getting a girl that you like or buying a new house or whatever. And the nature of doing that is codependency. That's the first thing, which means you're sad if you don't get it. But once you get it, you're afraid to lose it. So now there's anxiety. And the farther you are away from getting it, the distance is the measurement of your anxiety and stress. The farther you are away from getting what you want, the more stress you have. The closer you are to getting what you want, the less stress you have. And when you finally get what you want, your brain gives you a reward, a dopamine rush. And the nature of a dopamine rush is it has to crash. So if you buy a new shirt and you're very happy about it, you're very excited about it, after you wear it a few times or maybe 50 times, it no longer gives you that dopamine rush anymore, right? Same thing with people falling in love. Science has proven that basically when you're in love is basically a dopamine and a testosterone chemical rush. Just like cocaine, after a while you crash. That chemical turns off, and a new chemical turns on, which is oxytocin, and the other one starts with a V, I forgot. But it's basically a chemical that's no longer in love, but it's more bonding, protection, and loyalty. It's kind of like Mother Nature's way to design you to reproduce and then protect and love your family, which is a good thing, but it's kind of like your brain circuit doing this. So it never lasts. It doesn't matter what it is. Or like you get a house, you're very excited, but you get a dopamine rush and then your brain crash. This is well documented in neurology, right? It's just in Buddhism, they talked about it 2,500 years ago, that in the red dust, nothing is permanent. Nothing gives you permanent pleasure or bliss. That's not the nature of how your brain works, right? Same thing with inform. Maybe you want to get a six-pack. Maybe you want to become a good martial artist. Maybe you want to get your PhD and become really smart or whatever. But if you look at the top performers of every field, it's not permanent. You can't keep it up forever. If you look at a great singer, what happens when they get older is they usually lose their voice, right? You look at a good martial artist, you don't see a 60 or 70-year champion. If you look at the Olympics, most athletes quit by their early 30s. If you look at the academics, usually when they get really old, they don't think that fast anymore. Whatever ability you have attained that you are proud of, usually Mother Nature takes it away or at least reduce the crap out of it, right? And that's why we have midlife crisis, right? So, and suicidal depression. This is all well documented in psychology. But in the Eastern tradition, like Taoism, Buddhism, and Hinduism, they basically say, look, the red dust is not permanent. It's not, and well documented in science. So if form, rather outside or inside form, is not permanent, then the only option left is no form, which is this energy behind matter. So what happens if you taste it? You actually feel it. And in the last episode, we talked about the only two group of humans that successfully done this was the shamans through psychedelics and the mystics through meditation and prayer. When humans taste and feel this energy, they start to realize this energy innately is bliss, peace, and joy. Kind of like water is wet. Water is not separate from wet. Fire is hot. Fire is not separate from hot. So when you taste this energy, you realize this energy is bliss. It's not separate from bliss. And that will answer the major question that I always get, and that is, okay, you're chasing bliss and peace and meditation, but isn't that another form of impermanence? Just like trying to get a shirt or get a girl or get a big career or getting a big house? The answer is no. Because when you're chasing something, you're separate from it. That's why you're chasing it. If it was already part of you, then you already have it. There's no need to chase. But when you taste that energy, it's different. That energy is not separate. Just like water is not separate from wet, fire is not separate from hot. So when you taste that energy, it is bliss, and you start to realize it's actually your innate nature. Everything is made of it. All matter is made of that energy, right? And that shifts your paradigm in the way that you live your life, right? And that's what we mean when we say we dissolve and merge and we relieve ourselves from suffering. I'm doing a pretty poor job explaining this, but the Buddha did an amazing job explaining this, and as he called it, the Four Noble Truths. For anybody that wants to have a more brief understanding of this, please just Google the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism, and the Buddha explained it really well. Taoism, on the other hand, doesn't really bother explaining it. They just say, look, the red dust is not that good for you. Go be one with the Tao. But that kind of leaves a lot of misinterpretation, right? So, or Datmo, the founder of Zen, said, those who come to the Dharma come with great suffering. This is exactly what he means. If you're not sick of the red dust and you're having a blast, you're not going to go do the Dharma. You're not going to sit there and practice Qi Gong a lot. People that practice Qi Gong a lot or do psychedelics, whether it's the mystic path or the meditation prayer path, is because the form realm, whether inside or outside, living in that rat race, living in that form world, has caused them a lot of grief and suffering because it's impermanent, like we talked about, and it's codependency. Those two things never lead to lasting joy. It's never permanent. Your brain circuitry doesn't allow that. It's a dopamine rush up and down, constantly chasing, constantly anxious, constantly stressed. Just chase, more and more and more. There's no contentment and peace in that, right? So when that finally rips your heart out and you're finally suffering, that's when you open the door and you try to go the other way, which is the not form, the energy, right? So people that begin spirituality, even though if they can't articulate this is the reason why. That's why it usually happens in midlife. Because it is usually during midlife crisis that people start to realize, like, hey, society told me to get the girl, get the career, develop myself physically and mentally, blah, blah, blah. At midlife, you did all that. You did all that. You got the good job, you got the education, you got married, you had the kids, you got the six-pack, you read a lot of books, you did everything, okay. And then you sit there and you go, how come I still feel that void? How come I still feel depressed? How come I still feel anxious? I'm no longer the man I used to be. Everything I developed is being taken away from me by nature, all my skills, slowly. The people around me, they're either dying or the relationship's not the same. The material stuff that I bought no longer gives me that joy. So these recurring complaints of depression and suicide that you hear from clinical psychology, there's a reason why these patterns keep on repeating itself. And the Buddha warned us about this, so did Taoism, Hinduism, all native tradition of spirituality. The red dust is very pleasurable, but it's not permanent. So you start going the other way in a spiritual tradition. The reason why I'm mentioning this is to explain the last episode we talked about Qi. And today I want to say that Qi, the very nature of it, is bliss. Just like water is wet, fire is hot. It's not separate. Whereas the form realm is always separate. That's why you have to chase it. Just by knowing that, it doesn't mean you have to go this way and become spiritual. But now you have an actual, at least a guideline of why they exist. They don't go together very well for a reason, because one's positive number, one's negative number. They're in opposite direction. And just like positive and negative number, there is no end. You can't get spirituality, and you can't really have permanent, solid attainment in the form realm. Everything is decaying, and anything with matter is always decaying. So This is very important to understand. So when you're doing spirituality, you're not like, oh, I'm being very spiritual, and then you get a bigger ego. That's not the point of it, right? It's to relieve suffering. So to understand the root of suffering and the nature of decaying versus permanent is very important. So you don't end up using like psychedelics and meditation as a form of getting high, which is very common in the new age. Like, they're trying to escape reality with meditation. That's not what Qigong is for. It's not about escape, right? So that's something to think about, and that would definitely better your practice if you decide to practice Qigong, because then you'll be doing it for the right reason, and you won't be tricking your brain to try to get high off it, which is not very good. All right, guys. If you're interested in studying this some more, we have a new program coming up. Go to follow the link below in the description. Hope to see you there.